Hi, welcome to East Kitchen. Today we are going to make meatballs, albóndigas. We're going to start off with the wet ingredients because they have to sit in for a few minutes, which will be milk, eggs, and the breadcrumbs. Then we'll continue from there. So let's begin. We're going to go ahead and take our milk. Here I am using 2% milk. You can use 1% full regular milk if you'd like. And we're gonna go ahead and do 3/4 cup of that. To this, we're gonna add just 1 egg. And then we're going to go ahead and add 1 cup of breadcrumbs. Pour this in, mix it all together, and give it about 10 minutes to let it just sit, and we'll be back. So the mixture has sat with the milk and the egg. Now we're going to add the rest of the seasonings to this. So we're going to go ahead and take our parsley. So this will be two tablespoons and 1/4 teaspoon. To that, we're going to go ahead and add the salt. Here I'm using kosher salt. So for this kosher salt, I'm going to add basically 1.5 teaspoons. If you don't have kosher salt, you can use regular iodized salt, but then you only need to use 3/4 teaspoon of that. Okay. Then we're going to add the ground black pepper, and that'll be just 1 teaspoon. And then we're going to go ahead and also add just 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. We're going to go ahead and incorporate this, blend it in, make sure that it's all in there. Next, we're going to add 1/2 cup of shredded cheese. It could be a mixture of Parmesan and Romano. I like Pecorino Romano, so I usually get this brand here, which is all black bear. I like it. Has a good flavor to it, and that's Pecorino Romano. So we're using 1/2 cup. And we're gonna head and incorporate this again, mixing it all in. Make sure that it's in there together. Now, while you're doing this, you're gonna go ahead and start to preheat your oven at 350 because we're gonna cook the meatballs for at least 30 minutes in the oven at 350, and then we're gonna put them to simmer on the stove. Now we're gonna take our 1.5 pounds of ground beef, 80% lean, 20% fat. We're gonna go ahead and break it apart a little bit. I'm adding 1 tablespoon of oregano. So that's about 1 tablespoon there. I'm going to take my adobo and lightly sprinkle 1 round on one side and lightly sprinkle 1 round on the other side. Okay, then we're going to take our mixture that we've had and we're going to go ahead and put that in. And we're going to go ahead and incorporate it into the ground beef. And you're gonna let this sit in the refrigerator for at least a half hour before we go to form the meatballs. So I have my pan here. I lightly coated it with some nonstick spray. And I'm gonna go ahead and start forming the balls. You wanna make sure that you're taking the same amount for each. So that your meatballs are the same size. And before I start with that, I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil just to coat so it's easy to form the balls and they don't stick to, as you can see, it's moving around very nicely. You have your gloves on. I like to make my meatballs a little bit big because sometimes I'll just have them by themselves with a little bit of salad. If you're going to make these meatballs with pasta, then you definitely should make them smaller. Once they're in the oven for the 30 minutes, I would definitely suggest after 15 minutes to move them around. A dark baking sheet helps to allow them to get brown evenly versus using a pan that's not dark in color. Mine are coming out almost like baseballs, but you also have to remember that the meatballs will shrink. The meat is going to shrink. So you definitely want to Again, make sure that you're making these even in size. So even if you are making them a little large, just remember that they will get a little smaller in size as you're cooking them. So I'm going to go ahead. As you can see, this mixture, based on how I made my meatballs, made 6 large, medium to large meatballs. So again, your oven is at 350. You're going to cook these for 30 minutes, moving them around after 15 minutes. And then we'll take them out of the oven and into the pan with the sauce. We'll be back. I've just taken out the meatballs. It's been 30 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and use 24-ounce jar of marinara sauce. In this case, I'm using Browse. And I'm gonna go ahead and empty the jar out. Remember, we're gonna cook this on simmer for about 4 hours uncovered. And I'm putting that on low. I'm carefully going to place the meatballs in the sauce. And every so often you want to take a spoon and kind of pour the sauce over the meatballs as they're cooking. So again, we're gonna cook these meatballs on simmer for about 4 hours, and then we'll be back. So it's been 4 hours and I've turned the stove off, and here you see your final dish, meatballs. They look and smell delicious. We're gonna go ahead and plate it. So here we have your meatball. A good side accompaniment to this would be a nice green salad, and of course, your pasta of your choice. I'm gonna go ahead and taste it. Meatball is nice and tender, as you can see. The meatball is nice and tender, has great flavor. The sauce that I used, which was Rouse marinara sauce, gives it a good blend and taste to the meatball. This is really, really, really tasty. I hope you enjoy this recipe as much as I did. Happy cooking!